The perfect season, something that only few teams can achieve, as even the tiniest botched detail or missing puzzle piece can completely alter the course of reality. As we see in our favorite TV shows, it takes a great cast of characters, good script writers, directors, plots, storylines, drama, and more to create the perfect show. The same can be said about the NBA. You need a great star who can lead the show, along with a complementary cast that helps them perform their best, while also being able to uplift the team when the star is having an off night. You need a great coach, great trainers, management, and as Giannis said, even the equipment manager needs to wash the jerseys better. Looking back into the history of the NBA, you can see that the legendary runs that the NBA champions accomplished all have one thing in common: faith. Without believing in yourself, your teammates, and your ability to overcome any obstacle that life or the sport of basketball throws your way, you have already lost. So with that being said, what does it truly take for a team to win an NBA championship? Can just anyone do it? Or is it only for the select few that are cut from a different cloth? Hello everyone, I'm Mason, and let's talk about the fine details that it takes to really win an NBA championship. Make sure to drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you have not already. A lot of you guys that watch the videos are not subscribed, and it's completely free. It takes like 2 seconds, so make sure to click that sub button. Thank you very much. In order to really get to the top above everyone else, you need to be tough. And when I say toughness, I mean this in a variety of ways. You need to be physically tough, able to handle the contact of playoff basketball when the refs swallow the whistle. You need to be tough enough to deal with adversity. You may be down 2-1 in a series, 2-0, to be able to say, hey, we still have a chance to win it. You need to be mentally tough to be down by 20 in a playoff game, to still fight your way, claw back, and win that game. And tough enough to go into a series where you may not be favored. All the people are betting against you, and you still tell yourself, your teammates, and let your fans know that you're here to give it everything that you have. We can see in today's league that there are players who are a lot tougher than others, but we can also see that some of the past champions are some of the most mentally tough people that we've ever seen. Take Giannis Antetokounmpo, for example. In 2021, the Milwaukee Bucks, fighting into the NBA Finals where they went down 2-0 against the Phoenix Suns, told themselves it's not over just yet. They came back and reverse swept the entire series, winning the next 4 games straight, even with Giannis pretty much playing on one leg and dominating in one of the most crazy fashions we've ever seen. In 2022, people were still writing the narrative that Steph can't do it without Kevin Durant. The Warriors went into the playoffs as the 3 seed, were able to dominate their way through it all, and Steph finally shut up the haters that said he can't do it by himself. And when the noise is the loudest, that's the time when it really shows who's the toughest of them all. And well, the people that need to be the toughest out of everyone is those star players. Now, the star players are the most important piece of a championship team. When it comes down to 2 very great, high-powered, deep teams, one of the only deciding factors is which stars really show up when the lights are the brightest, which stars perform when it's crunch time, when the game slows down, offense starts getting stagnant. Who's the guy that will be able to make that tough shot over some incredible defense? Those are the guys that you need to be the toughest. Looking back through the history of the NBA, and every time that a player has won the NBA Finals or won a Finals MVP, there's only a small handful of guys that were not arguably a top 5 player in the league at that point. Some of those names being Jaylen Brown last year, Andre Iguodala in 2015, Tony Parker in 07, Chauncey Billups in 04, and other than that, you really have to go far back to find some of those teams that were able to win just off of what some people like to call the power of friendship. And while the power of friendship is very important in this context, it may sound a little goofy, but it is true. When it comes to the power of friendship, that means the chemistry. When you have a team, you need everyone to be able to get along very well. When you have a star player, whether it's a Kobe Bryant who loves to have the ball in his hands, everybody get out of the way because you know he's going to take a tough shot and he's still going to make a ton of them. Or you might have a star player who's more of a Tyrese Halliburton, a guy that will facilitate for the offense and get everyone else going while also being able to get his. But the role players are equally as important because those are the guys that you need to key in to fit like perfect puzzle pieces around your star player. Consider your basketball team a jigsaw puzzle where all the pieces are different sizes. The star player piece is going to be the biggest piece right in the center, but in order to connect it around the edges, you're going to need those guys who fit perfectly around him. When you have a ball dominant guy, such as maybe a Luka Doncic, who's a very great playmaker and scorer, what you need around him is guys who can spot up and shoot, or also good lob threats, which we've seen the Mavs fit with him before he was traded. He was fit with Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford, which are guys that are both very aggressive lob threats. He can toss the ball to him anytime and they'll go get it. The reason the Mavs were able to reach the finals last season was because of Luka Doncic, not just his incredible play, but because they had guys step up. We saw PJ Washington step up in that second round series. We saw Derek Lively play very incredible throughout the playoffs, and we saw Kyrie Irving have very, very great games as a secondary scorer in that scenario. But what all of those things have in common, the teams were built around that star player. Even looking at this year, the Boston Celtics are such a well-built team because they have Jason Tatum, who is the #1 option on the team, but you have a guy in Jaylen Brown who can take over on any given night. You have two guards who can shoot threes, play incredible defense, and still self-create when needed to in Derek White, Drew Holiday, along with tons of depth on that team and tons of guys who can shoot. Porzingis can shoot and create. Al Horford can shoot. Sam Hauser can shoot. All of these guys for Boston are perfectly built around in a way that that team is literally made to shoot threes and succeed that way. The Cavaliers are built around that powerhouse starting five, but especially because you have two guards who are not the best defensively in that starting lineup. You have two bigs who are incredibly good defensively in Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley. When those two guards go out of the game, you may think, oh, what happens to their scoring? Well, that's why they have Ty Jerome, who's pretty much a miniature Donovan Mitchell in his shot creation by itself. Or Oklahoma City being built well around Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, having him being the NBA scoring leader, but also having him as a playmaker works very well because you have a ton of guys on that team that can spot up and shoot, but also everyone on that team is such a hound defensively that while Shai may be a pretty good defender, he does not have to guard the other team's best player on any night because they have so many good versatile options in Alex Caruso, Lou Dort, J-Dub, and more. When it comes to one of these well-built teams versus teams that don't exactly work, we've seen some of that as well. We see this in today's Phoenix Suns, no disrespect to them, but because they have built a roster star-studded high in talent in Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, and also Bradley Beal, who again is a very ball-dominant player, not as much now in his career, but especially in earlier seasons. They lack a good rim protector along with just sound, consistent defense, and it really is hard for them to get going because of those factors. So while you may be able to have some star players, Kevin Durant and Devin Booker being very high up on that current list, probably top 10 to top 15 players, both of them, it is just incredibly hard when you don't have the right pieces around them. Which brings us into the next point of coaching and game planning. Now, you may have that star player and the correct pieces around them, but if your coach does not know how to utilize those players for what their skill sets are, how in the world is that ever going to work? In our puzzle scenario, it's like the guy building the puzzle would be the coach because he's the one that has to put those pieces into the places they belong. We've seen coaches such as Doc Rivers who are infamous for blowing 3-1 leads because when the other team makes an adjustment to him in order to fight back in that series, they'll find something that works. He's not exactly the best at making an adjustment to fight back against them, as we've seen in his past. We even see now coaches such as Steve Kerr who are still, throughout the entire season this year, he was fighting to figure out who belongs in that starting lineup, how much should all these guys play, should Trace Jackson Davis play, should Quentin Post play, should Kevon Looney play. Moses Moody wasn't even getting playing time at the beginning of the year. Now he's in the starting lineup. Being a coach is one of the hardest things because you have to figure out who's good at what, how much you can maximize that with an actual effective game plan, and how well the team fits together. Now, one of my favorite examples of this is Ime Udoka for the Rockets. When he went over there, they were a very struggling lottery team, had just gotten Jabari Smith. He goes in there, figures out how to instill a defensive culture in that team. Now they are one of the most exciting and highest intensity defensive teams in the NBA, all because of what he was able to instill those beliefs in that team. You look at JV Bickerstaff for the Detroit Pistons, really instilled a culture in that team of you guys were losers these past few seasons, but you don't have to be losers anymore. We can compete. We have one of the best guards in the Eastern Conference in Cade Cunningham. They surrounded him with shooters. He figured out how to maximize their game plan in order to get Cade as a playmaker to hit those shooters. Isaiah Stewart has been great defensively for this team, and this is why coaching is so important. Monty Williams didn't even really want to be there last year for the Pistons. Finally, they got a coach that not just wants to be there, but is showing respect to the players respect him, and they're fighting in a great series, one of the best playoff series so far with the New York Knicks. And realistically, you don't even have to have the best game plan. Sometimes you can have a star player that when the game plan doesn't work, you throw that out the window. You say, hey, Luka, we need you right now. Go dominate this game. And he might hit 4 threes in a quarter and take all the momentum right back for the Lakers. But we also see that in today's league, people are so quick to give up on coaches. We saw it within the last 3 or 4 weeks before the playoffs started. 2 Western Conference playoff teams, one of them having a guy who's arguably the MVP in Nikola Jokic, and they fired their coach a week before the playoffs started. So now David Adelman is stuck in a tough position because he's fighting against the Clippers, who everyone underestimated going into the playoffs. Now they're down 2-1 at the time of recording. How in the world are they supposed to fight back? This is such a tough situation for him. They're going to have to figure out, okay, do we want to keep Adelman? Do we want to go get someone else? They still have Taylor Jenkins. They could sign Mike Budenholzer. There's a couple of really good options for them to go pick up. But considering all the factors that we've just named, easily the most important part that it takes to win a championship is you have to have a chip on your shoulder to prove everyone wrong. Last year, the narratives were all over the Boston Celtics that they had built a super team that they still couldn't win. The narratives were on Jason Tatum that he's a playoff dropper, all of these things. And even though he may not have performed the best, he finally went out there and they won the championship. And here we go again. The narratives are already back. Tatum can't win without a super team. Tatum can't carry a team. We see the narratives of, oh, Luka can't play defense. Jokic can't play defense. Jokic only plays for his stats. Gilgeous-Alexander has a super team. He can't score without free throws. All of these narratives are surrounding so many great players because the media loves to tear these players down. All that's going to do is fuel a fire under their butt to try to make them play better. And we can only hope that one of those guys that we've just named will be able to take home the chip this year and just prove all the doubters wrong. Winning a championship is something that it's going to take every ounce of effort, blood, sweat, tears that every player on that roster has. It takes so much effort, intensity, heart, passion, and love for the game of basketball. And there's so many things that we see, and there's 100 times more things that we don't see that go on off the court of those players preparing to try to win a championship. So now that we've completed our perfect puzzle, finding our star players, our perfect role players, our mental toughness, our coaching, our game plan, we're all set. And our star player just went down with an injury. So now we're in panic mode. What do we do? A lot of teams have faced this exact situation. We've seen in 2021, the Brooklyn Nets, who were title contenders, unfortunately faced injuries to Kyrie Irving and James Harden both that left Kevin Durant to fight for himself, in which they lost in the overtime of Game 7 to the eventual champion Milwaukee Bucks. And unfortunately for a lot of teams, such as last year, Luka Doncic being banged up throughout the playoffs, and this year we've already seen Ja Morant and Jimmy Butler go down with some horrific injuries. It's already showing you that the physical durability and luck is very important. It does take a little bit of luck to win a championship because if luck is on someone else's side, that's just another factor working against you. The Boston Celtics did receive a little bit of luck last year, as some of the teams that they got to play in the playoffs were not fully healthy. The Heat, Jimmy Butler was out. Obviously, the Cavs, Donovan Mitchell went down. Pacers lost Tyrese Halliburton, and Luka was a little banged up in the finals. I have no doubt in my mind that they still would have taken out all those teams, but it also is definitely a factor that things could have gone differently if people wouldn't have gotten injured. Sometimes luck is a factor that is just predetermined by the universe of who will win. At the same time, you can only just cross your fingers and hope that nothing of that sort happens to your team. What do you think is the most important factor going into the NBA playoffs for a team? What do you think is the biggest reason for a team to win a championship? Do you think it's the star player? Do you think it's the roster being built around the star player? Or do you think it's just the glue that holds it all together? Please let me know down in the comments below, and thank you so much for watching today's video. I really do appreciate it. And as always, I'll see you next time, cuh.